Inspiration, clarity, confidence, and wholehearted business strategy. Welcome to Your Next Chapter, the podcast especially for women in their 40s and beyond who know that business and personal development go hand in hand. Tune in each week for marketing, mindset, and personal growth strategies, along with inspiring stories from women around the world who are creating new businesses and lives that are personally fulfilling and financially rewarding. If you're looking to create a business and life you love, you're in great company. Let's find out what will unfold in your next chapter. I'm your host, Angela Rasmus, and I'm so delighted that you're here. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Your Next Chapter podcast. This is Angela Rasmus. Thank you so much for choosing to tune in and join our conversation today. And I have the gorgeous Larissa Halls from Everyday Inspiration coming back for our monthly chat about all things mindset, how to support ourselves as we move forward in this journey into our next chapters in business and life. Larissa, thank you so much for joining me again today.
It's my pleasure, Angela. It's good to be back.
I love these conversations, and the feedback we've had has been really positive because this whole topic of how to take better care of ourselves up here, I'm tapping the side of my head, is such a big part of this journey that we're on. And today we're going to start that conversation around that idea very much of self-support, the way that we speak to ourselves, how we can be our greatest advocates in this thing called life. And I know that this is a conversation that a lot of people are going to enjoy tuning into and taking out some great tips and strategies. So what's it all about? How can we be far more self-supportive? Do we tend not to be? Is that our default position? What have you seen as a mindset coach?
I think we tend to a certain level. And people, because we wouldn't do anything, right, if we didn't believe in ourselves in some capacity. And because you and myself, we work with a lot of women in business, you've got to back yourself to a certain degree to even just entertain the idea of starting your business and moving on to your next chapter in life. So quite often I see people get to a certain point and then plateau, which is kind of normal, but some plateau forever, right? Or kind of go all in, but don't support the self in other areas of life because there's different forms of support, self-support. And the fulfilling business, what they thought would manifest becomes a drain on their energy.
Oh, I love that first concept that you put there, that we must be self-supportive to a certain extent to have even taken this step or even contemplating taking this step into creating a business. That's a really, really important point. I think that dovetails into one of the perspectives that I've often shared about reverse gapping yourself, not always looking forward and going, oh my God, I've got so far to go, but looking back and going, you know what, I've actually made some pretty damn good steps forward. It's quite reassuring to think that you've got a bit of Guernsey if you've taken this step anyhow. So you're starting from a position of strength and you can only grow from here.
That's exactly right. This is something that came up for me recently. I had this perception, I think I've shared before on the podcast in another life, maybe my first chapter. I was in the hair and beauty industry, opened my own salon, and I had this perception that I didn't fully believe in myself. And then I look back and I've been telling myself this for years and I'm like, no, I did. At 21, I went and bought a bricks and mortar business out of my own money that I'd saved up and created a business, a successful business. So I had this long-standing belief that I didn't fully, believe and support myself in what I did with creating, beautiful hairstyles and all of that kind of stuff. And then I'm like, no. I wouldn't have even gone there if I didn't. So you need to stop lying to yourself, Larissa, and realize, you did believe you could do it. Otherwise you wouldn't have taken that step. So yeah.
Do you think, just on,
so
that, on that subject there, do you think that this has got anything to do with a fear of being perceived as a bit up yourself, I guess is the expression that I certainly heard when I was in New Zealand growing up, that you had tickets on yourself, or you were arrogant, or you're a tall poppy, or you're a bit up yourself if you actually suggest that you know what, I am pretty good at this and I'm going to make this a success, god damn it.
Yes, I am awesome. That is so right. It comes from that belief that it's not right, or we shouldn't, or you're up yourself if you go around spruiking how amazing you are at something, and there's a difference between being arrogant and actually believing in yourself. And you know what? Giving yourself a bit of credit for a job well done every now and then.
I think it's pretty important. That helps us build the future fuel. But it's like this bit of a dance we've got to do. On one hand, we've got the I don't want to come across as arrogant. On another hand, you've got that, well, I'm not really sure if I can do this, and then the fear base. Then you've got this third quarter, which is I think I can, and like it's this delicate sort of dance that we're doing all the time. But I've certainly was working with a client this morning in my mentoring program, and we were reflecting on our harshest voices we tend to keep for ourselves. The way that we speak to ourselves, if we actually went out there in public and spoke to other people like that, we wouldn't have a lot of friends. So we seem to have that tendency to be hardest on ourselves. Why do you think that is? Why do we do this to ourselves?
Why? I don't know.
It's the $1 million question.
It is the $1 million question. But this is the thing. And then a lot of the things we say to ourselves, yes, like you just said, if we went and spoke to someone else like that, it wouldn't be acceptable. But if somebody else spoke to us like that, we probably wouldn't accept that either.
I would hope not.
No. Thinking of something you've said to yourself lately?
No, I'd probably sever that friendship pretty quickly. So if we understand and we come from the premise that most of us recognise that we can be or have a tendency, or our baseline behaviour is to rough ourselves up a little bit, and that obviously is not going to be a growth experience. How can we start working on that voice? What can we do to become more self-supporting?
I believe the first part of any part of change is awareness.
Totally.
So having an awareness about what are we saying to ourselves? Perhaps where did that come from? And asking the question, would I accept this if somebody else said it to me? So having an awareness about what is going on, what are you saying to yourself, and in what circumstances?
And this is a serious point. Like, I think we can, like, I just want to bring this one home a little bit here, that we've heard this, like, yes, listen to yourself talk and don't speak to yourself like that. But there's a difference again with what you're saying between being aware that this is something that we should do and then actually doing it.
And then actually doing it, yeah, that's the
not just the lip service, but I think even taking note of it so that you can see the patterns that start to emerge. Yeah,
maybe even write some of it down and just be like, whoa, like I've done this before, like in a journal, and just like, what do I really think? But I really went on the lines of swaying over to the so-called negative side, and was just whoa. Shocked, like, wow, where is this even coming from? And look, sometimes it's an automatic default. We've said it for so long. It's like we've driven a really a deep path, like create a really strong neural pathway in the mind that it's just an automatic thought that happens, that could have started from when we were young, something one of our teachers said, or mother or sister used to call you a certain name, or say, oh, you're so stupid at XYZ. And so we start to tell ourselves the same things. Maybe you, as a young kid, told yourself a certain thing, and just that has become your belief or self-talk.
Because really, that's all. At the end of the day, that's all a belief is. It's an attitude or a statement that we have consistently repeated till we get to the state that we just believe it. It's automatic.
It's etched in there so deep that it is automatic. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So definitely just that awareness, and perhaps even where did this come from?
Yeah, seeing if you can see the origin of it, because it gives you an understanding. And I think I really would suggest to you that's listening right now, do capture those pieces, write them down, because in isolation, just if you catch yourself occasionally, it mightn't seem like such a big deal, but if you actually get those little suckers down and you see how often once they build up at the whole list of things that you're saying to yourself or the way that you're speaking to yourself over time, you'll actually see a bit of an avalanche and recognize that there is a need to dig yourself out from underneath it.
Yes, absolutely. And this is another thing. It's up to you to dig yourself out.
Yep, we're going to lend you. We're going to lend you a shovel, but you have to do the digging yourself.
That's it.
Okay, so we've got the awareness, and we're a little bit horrified. We've seen these patterns. There are sort of like little good bits in there as well. We do give ourselves pats on the back occasionally here, but we want to tip the scales. So now I've got the awareness, and I'm motivated to change. What do we do next?
So the next part of that would be awareness, motivation, and perhaps replacing or accepting, one or the other. So I don't even know where that come from, right? But let's expand on that. But
okay,
there's accepting that that's how we have thought about ourselves. Because, trying to change something that you believe so deeply is it can sometimes work against, like, you've got these different parts of yourself. I always say there's all these people in your head almost, like, you can see yourself doing something, and then you've got yourself watching yourself, but then there's this another part that's going, oh, yeah, go for it, good job. And then there's this other part of you going, why do I even do this? Then there's this another voice going, oh, this feels good. Oh, but I shouldn't be doing it. So there's like this orchestra of people in your head. So accepting rather than beating yourself up. Like, oh, my God, I'm a horrendous person for telling myself this for the last 20 years. No wonder I ended up, failing at
It's the second. I think this is the concept of the second arrow, which I've heard about in philosophy and meditation as well. Is that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. This concept of, first of all, we beat ourselves up, or we call ourselves horrible things, or we say unsupportive things to ourselves, and then we recognize them, and then start beating ourselves up for saying awful things and not supporting ourselves. So that's that second arrow that hits. So I think that's where the acceptance part comes in, is recognizing it and just noticing it. Oh, yep, I've done that. Yes, I have, but I choose to do things differently going forward. I choose to start to make a change. I choose to begin to speak more kindly to myself. Just sort of draw a little bit of a line in the sand and make that observation, and then start to look at those, which we're going to explore now, is the replacement behaviours. But yeah, the acceptance and a bit of self-compassion. Hey, it's a pattern. I've been doing it for a while. It takes a wee while to change these habits, but I'm motivated to do it because if I am more encouraging, much like anyone in my life, if we respond better to honey than sticks, methinks. So now it's time to do some replacement. Like one of my go-to modalities is EFT. The emotional freedom technique, tapping to, and I love the conscious choices EFT that I use myself and also with my clients, where you're moving towards the new behavior. You're not trying to completely eradicate it, change everything overnight. You're moving towards the new behavior. So that's what I like to use. But what's in your toolkit, darling?
Oh, there's lots of different things. But just at its most basic level, and I'm sure many of us have heard about affirmations. So really, it's almost like we're ready to create a new neural pathway in our minds. So it goes back to the old metaphor, if you were walking through a forest and everyone walked along the same path, they're going to create a very evident pathway.
Absolutely.
The shrubs will wear back and you'll see dirt underneath. But to create a new pathway, you need to kind of walk through the unknown. So perhaps replace the old belief, or the belief that's not serving you well, the one that's beating you up and not giving you energy or motivation or inspiration, and replace it with something that feels more empowering to you.
So, for example, let's look at a concrete example. If someone is, say, trying to do something new, trying to attract some new clients towards a new service, and they've put it out there once or twice, and there's been crickets, and the old self might be going, "See, no one's going to buy it. You know that what you've created is crap. Everyone who's out there's got better stuff than you." You know, all that sort of stuff that starts straight away in your head. So, yes. And then we recognise it. Oh, there I go again.
Yeah, say hello.
Hello, nice to see you. I've noticed. And now we're going to move into replacement. So with like affirming, I'd use some EFT on that. But if we were now using an affirmation to create that new pathway, to knock down, you know, the bushes and the scrub and the grass in that direction, what's an example of what we might say to ourselves instead?
Well, just changing whatever you felt was the disempowering or negative belief and flipping it. So I used to have a little game. It wasn't a game. It was just something I played with myself, and literally in my head, if I caught myself out, this was probably like 15 years ago, I would say switch, and literally switch to more of an empowering thought. So you're basically turning the disempowering self-talk into more empowering self-talk. So taking the example that you just had, perhaps we'd go, okay, well, you know what? I obviously believed in myself enough to do this. Why do people need it? Well, because they're stressed and they're this, or they're struggling with their business. Okay, great. So yeah, so kind of just it's a questioning process and just flipping all those disempowering statements you've just told yourself and then moving them into more empowering statements.
Absolutely. I love that idea of actually that physical stop, switch, say it out loud, you know, and it's that physical break, full stop. Let's go in a new direction. So, yeah, and then that's the really simple part is the flipping. But here's the tricky part, I think, is that we can get resistant sometimes to the affirmation. Go, oh yeah, like, you know, the old one of there's not a lot of money in the bank, but the affirmation is I'm a millionaire, and your brain goes, no, you're not.
That's right.
I think it's choosing. I think the trick here, or the goal here, is to choose an affirmation that moves you in that direction, that stretches, that feels much better, but is realistic. So perhaps, okay, we've done the switch.
So it's realistic, yeah, and believable now.
Yes, believable now. So I don't. You know, other people have different opinions on this, but this is my take on it. Rather than saying my program is filled to overflowing with hundreds of fabulous new clients, it could be the first step could be I've poured wonderful time and energy and resources into this program. It's of great quality. It's perfect for my most aligned clients, and I know that given some time, I'm going to attract the ones who really will benefit from it. So just being realistic, being encouraging, but not being over the top. What do you reckon?
Oh, you've hit the nail on the head, of course.
Yay!
But then this is a thing, but like if you change it to a more empowering suggestion or belief or thought, self-talk, actually, yeah, owning it, make it realistic. So like you said, leading towards the best outcome. But also if you're, let's just take a real easy, like I beat myself up. I'm ugly. You know, like people look in the mirror. Oh, I'm so ugly. I'm looking old. Things like that. So it's like overnight, you're not going to believe you're Elle Macpherson II or anything like that. Just saying, asking yourself the question, what is admirable about me? So rather than just completely going to the opposite and going, I'm so beautiful, what is my most beautiful asset?
Oh, it's funny you say that. I mean, this is absolutely something that happened just this morning. I was, I turned into Elle Macpherson. No joke. I was on a mastermind call taking care of some of my clients a couple of days ago. I'm in a new office, just moved into a new home, and beautiful spot that I get to work in. But the light comes from the side rather than in front of me, so it was a little dark on the Zoom call that I was doing. And one of the lovely girls suggested, if you can put a mirror on the other side of your computer, that will reflect some of the light back. And I went, oh, we've got one of those. My daughter used to have it on the back of her door, but she's actually got mirrored wardrobes now. She doesn't need it. So I went and propped it up behind my computer, made a bit of an improvement, etc. But then I was on a call with another client this morning, and I looked in the mirror and went, "Oh my God, you're looking really old. Look at all those wrinkles." And I started going down that path, and you can feel that spiral start to take you down if you allow it. But I did, I guess, what you've just articulated, though I didn't use the word switch, but I went like that, hang on a minute, look at your smile. You look really happy. You're looking really bright and cheerful. You're loving what you're doing. You're in a gorgeous space. Life is grand. I turned it around, but it's the point of, I didn't look in the mirror and go, actually, there's not a single wrinkle. You're as smooth as a baby's bottom. Because
reality.
Yeah. I want to be optimistically realistic. Okay. But by stopping and choosing to focus on the positive aspects, then I felt myself go back up. And I think that's the key. Like, I can't, and I won't just do that once. Like, it's not that the next time I look in the mirror, I won't notice that, the realities are I'm getting older. But it does mean that each time that I get that little, I can turn it around. I won't always do it successfully. I might be feeling like absolute crap, in which case I'll go and eat potato chips or something.
Yeah, that's good.
But it's just that little opportunity to respond rather than to react, and to be self-supportive rather than self-critical. Wherever we can, it just gives us that little more of a boost. I certainly felt better than if I'd started to nitpick, that's for sure.
Exactly. And this is the thing, or having that balanced awareness about, asking yourself questions as in, what could I improve on? I think it's important. Like, the biggest thing is to be realistic about it. And, I'm crap at, getting my baz in on time or something. Maybe you are. You're not, you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to start telling yourself you're amazing at it and still not get your baz in on time. Like, asking yourself the right questions, great. Okay, I've recognized something that I could work on. Because sometimes we tell ourselves things that are actually true, and we would be blinded to the downsides if we didn't explore some of them, and we would never grow. So we're not saying switch every so-called negative or disempowering thought, because some of them serve us.
Absolutely. That's a really good point, of ones that serve us, that can provide, or it's just, I guess the point here though is that if we recognize that there is a room for improvement, it's not see, you always screw that up. It's just that, hey, here's a place where, here's a growth opportunity. So it's that self-compassion, that self-regard. Again, it's the using the honey instead of the stick. It's the same principle, but I love the fact that our conversation is embracing the realistic side of things.
Yes, that's right. Well, it jogged my memory. I had a client last week, a couple of weeks ago, and it was at the beginning of the year. We started working together because she's like, I'm usually not this negative. I'm in a really negative space. And I'm like, I've worked with her on and off for about 2 years or a year and a half. And just every time she gets in a bit of a funk or in a bit of a hole, and then it was kind of like, you've been here before. What was going on? Like, let's not think that because you've been thinking negative lately more than usual, or it's gone out of balance, that it's a bad thing. What is it? Feedback. What's it trying to tell you? And she's like, I'm tired. I'm run down. Honestly, I need a rest. And I go, what happened last time when you were thinking like this? I was tired, I was run down, and I needed a rest. Okay, cool. All right. So when you get into one way of, going downhill spiral of negative thoughts, it's feedback, right? It's always feedback, I believe, whether it's feedback about a belief, something you feel or think about yourself, or it could be just that, like, okay, when I'm tired and working too hard and haven't had a holiday for a while, I do start to think negatively. So having an awareness of the what's and the whys.
So self-support also an aspect of that, as well as the supportive self-talk, is being aware of the feedback that your body and your mind are giving you, and then responding appropriately, not pushing it to one side, not thinking I've got to push through, but actually being respectful of what's going on for you.
Absolutely. There's a whole area of study which is quite, I believe, kind of newish when it comes to fields of study, called psychoneuroimmunology. So it's
That's a biggie.
So it's like it's a bit of a mouthful, as you could tell, but it's kind of the interactions between the nervous system, the immune system, but like the mental processes, basically the mind and health. And
I can spell that.
Yeah, mind and health. So it's it's a study of this dance that goes on between our body's feedback systems and our states of being. So they incorporate lots of different parts or different areas of study, obviously neuroscience and psychology, but immunology, there's a whole bunch, molecular biology, genetics, all of that kind of stuff, endocrinology. So how our bodies respond to feedback from our minds. It's fascinating, but this is like a lot of the time our bodies will tell us if we're too out of balance with our thinking. So if we're too thinking, disempowering negative thoughts, our bodies situations will give us feedback.
Oh, this Bruce Lipton, The Biology of Belief.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is I've only just listened to rather than read his stuff lately, and I think this ties into here, that what we believe, what we think actually does empower or disempower our body. I've got this. I think this is one of my supportive beliefs rather than one of my misbeliefs. I'm a Kiwi farm girl by birth, and I have this absolute belief that I have an incredibly strong immune system and I don't get sick. And I tell myself that if the sniffles start or my husband's sick or whatever, I just reinforce to myself that I'm not going to catch it because I have a strong immune system and I don't get sick.
Because I grew up around bacteria and germs.
Yeah, cow pats. And I don't know. Yeah, this is a tiny, tiny slice, and I am no neuroimmunologist, psychoneuroimmunologist. But it's a little thing that I do believe has kept my overall pretty darn good health, because I strongly believe that that's a part of my makeup.
That's right. And this, so you're creating success in the area of health. But this is the thing, anything we think about any area of our lives, and so it is.
Yeah, we find what we're looking for, don't we?
Yes, absolutely. So it is a really that they say, at the end of the day, everything comes down to perception and the mind. What we think about life and ourselves, that is our reality. So you could quite literally change your reality with a shift in perceptional thoughts, as well as your physical reality, and your mental and emotional, spiritual reality as well.
So we have an enormous ability to impact our social, our physical, our mental, our emotional health just by the way that we speak to and treat ourselves enormously.
Yes, 100%. And this brings me into, I jogged my memory, obviously I help people in the way of mindset and coaching, but a part of what I share with the world is meditation as well. So I thought I'd slip that one in there. That is also a really good way of building up the mind muscle of creating awareness around thoughts. So meditation isn't necessarily like you just need to sit there with a blank mind, although it can eventually lead to that. Quite often it's building that mental strength around noticing and having an awareness of a thought, and then bringing the mind back to a focus point, which quite often is the breath. So if we take the principles of meditation and relate them to our businesses or a goal that we have, how about we have an awareness about disempowering thoughts and bring our minds back to the focus that is going to create the outcome that we want.
I think, or I feel that this has got a lot to do with the idea of why did you create this business? What was the change that you wanted to impact on the world? Because we often have a why that sits underneath the actual services, standing for something bigger than just what it is that we sell. So if we come back to the why behind it and use that in the same way that we would focus on a mantra or focus on your breath as well in meditation. So coming back to that point, I'm in this business because I'm creating this program because I'm motivated to help these women or men because. And then but everyone's doing it better than me and it's taking too long and it's too hard and just let those thoughts drift by and continually bring yourself back to anchor back into that purpose.
Because we forget about that, and how many, and you may do this with your clients, I'm not 100% sure, but there's plenty of mini e-courses and things where you do sit down and create your strong and compelling why. But I've thought about this, and I'm so going to do it because it's something that's been on my mind. Of course, I need to write it down and take action on it. Is actually create like a little song of my mantra, like a little mantra out of my why, because we forget. So that could kind of be the next part of it. Create visual cues and reminders. Create, a mantra out of it so you can listen to it in the car. Create a point of practice where you go over it every day, because we forget. And when we forget, we just start floundering. Oh, I don't know what I'm doing or why I'm doing it. And, stupid me. I always end up back in this place. I don't know why I'm doing it. I'm hopeless. I'm not. Stuff it.
I'm going to the potato chips. But I love this, how we can bring this in from two sides. From let's do the left brain, right brain here. On the left brain side, having a clear why, a clear purpose behind why you're doing the thing that you do, what motivates and inspires you. That when you've got that clear vision of where it is that you're going, it makes it easy to make choices, i.e. create strategies and tactics that support the attainment of that vision. So there's the left hand, the left brain side of things. It's practical, makes it easier to choose that marketing option or that promotional tactic versus the other one, because it takes you closer to those clients, those watering holes, etc., etc. But then on the right-hand side of things, that being anchored in that why and that purpose, it allows you to stay anchored when things are getting a bit wobbly, when it's hard, when you're not quite getting the results that you want, or when you're feeling less than, as we do on some days. But if we can raise ourselves up again and reconnect to, hey, I'm in this for the long haul. I'm in this because even if I did not get paid for it, this is really important to me. And that passion and that connection and that commitment is what's going to pull me through. Yes. I'm back up again. So I love how we can use that connecting to our own mantra, affirmation, vision, whatever you want to call it. Connecting into that works on both sides, the heart and the head. And, I'm really big about connecting the two. You can't have one without the other.
And that's why your original programs were about alignment, because that's what it is. It's about connecting those parts of ourselves. And when we get aligned, we find that middle ground of having both.
Yeah, and that's important, isn't it? Because, and we've talked about this, if we're completely spiritual, then we don't get a lot done. If we're completely action-oriented, we've lost the heart. And so there is that blend. Yeah, it is. It's alignment between who we are and what we do and the way we show up.
It's being able to express all parts of ourselves, our physical selves, and which will fulfill our earthly responsibilities, I suppose, if you want to say that, getting up, brushing our teeth, going to the loo, eating, drinking, all of that kind of stuff, earning an income so we can do all that, but also being able to have a vision that is beyond ourselves. We need to access those other parts of ourselves and our minds and our brains to be able to get that feeling of, oh, that feels really good. This is amazing. And then go back into the action side, which is the physical part of ourselves.
Yeah, we do need
You
both.
know?
I love the
Yeah, we
idea.
do.
I mean, I'm big on the visual cues. This statement. I've actually got my why, my purpose. I mean, I'll admit right now, as you know, when we started this podcast, I'm in the closet at the moment, physically, not metaphorically. I'm actually at this new house. I've found that the acoustics in my walk-in wardrobe are wonderful for podcasting, so that's where I am right now. But in my actual office, I have on the vision board, which sits behind me, this beautiful picture of a lighthouse and all the statements about why it is that I do what I do. You know, what's the purpose behind and underpinning, my action and my business. And I do. One of the things that I provide is a weekly planner, and I've provided this in the Next Chapter Facebook group. It's one of the resources you can access there, and I provide it as a part of the programs to my clients. But right at the start of the weekly planner, every week you reconnect to purpose. You just do a little soundbite version, a little couple of sentences about why are you doing this thing anyway? What is the vision? So reconnecting to that each and every time I walk into my office, reconnecting to that each and every time I'm sitting and doing my weekly plan, it just keeps me, connected. And when I feel connected, I feel much more purposeful. And when I'm feeling more connected and purposeful, I tend to be kinder to myself, because I didn't used to be. I mean, you go back a few years and, pre-recovery days, I was rather vicious to myself in the way I spoke. And it didn't take me to nice places, that's for sure.
No, and it doesn't. And this is the thing, because when we get there, we're like, just the terminology, it didn't take me to nice places. So that it like refers to like a scene to me, like a place, So it's because we see it, we think it, we see it, we feel it. At that moment, we are experiencing that place that we got ourselves to. And this reminds me, and I found it this morning, and I don't know if it's too long to read out, but this is something, I did what's his name? Bob Proctor?
Oh, yeah.
I think.
Yep,
the white hair. And so it was something that come out of a course that I did. Oh, gosh, I was like, I think I was like 38 now, so I would have been about 24, I think, at the time.
A babe in arms.
Yeah. So I laminated it, and I've always remembered it because it really it links into what we're talking about. I'll read some of it. If it gets too long-winded, just butt in. There is a thinking stuff from which all things are made, and which, in its original state, permeates, penetrates, and fills the interspaces of the universe. A thought in this substance produces the thing that is imaged by the thought. So it starts at thoughts, right? So thoughts, and then create a vision, which is what we're talking about. When I form things in my mind and impressing my thought upon formless substance, I can create the things I think about to be created. In order to do this, I must pass from the competitive mind to the creative mind. Otherwise, I cannot be in harmony with formless intelligence, which is always creative and never competitive in spirit. I come into full harmony with the formless substance by entertaining a lively and sincere gratitude for the blessing it bestows upon me. Gratitude unifies my mind with intelligence of substance so that my thoughts are received by the formless. So I'm going to stop there for a moment. Oh, no, I'll read the next sentence. I can remain upon the creative plane only by uniting myself with the formless intelligence through a deep and continuous feeling of gratitude. So when you're in that space, I'm pausing there.
Yep.
In that space of beating yourself up, telling yourself, can't do it, I'm hopeless, or this always happens to me. You're not going to be in harmony, which is, to me, another word of alignment, with receiving information, ideas, solutions to problems you might be encountering in your life or business, if you're in a place of darkness.
It's impossible to tap into creativity when you're in a place of darkness. That's that position, or that spot that you get in, is what stuckness is so often associated with. I'm stuck. I can't see a way through. I can't see a way out. And I think the other point that he made there about moving out of the competitive space and into the creative space,
yes,
that really resonated with me from a perspective that, I mean, I won't say that I'm completely through it, but I think there is a little bit of the older and wiser thing coming up here, that if I am trying to create something in comparison to something else that someone else has created, it constrains me. Yes. So if I'm wanting to create a particular program or a service or an event or a workshop, whatever it is, if I am creating it in response to, I've seen somebody else do something similar, I thought it was a good idea, so I'm going to do my version, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work, because you're constrained by the parameters of something you've seen. Where if you instead respond to intuition, to what's calling you, to what you feel that your audience, your most aligned client most needs and will benefit from by asking and listening, then you're catapulted right past that competitive space and into that creative space, which you're speaking about.
Yes, yes. And actually, I think this might have come from Napoleon Hill's book,
Think and Grow Rich.
I'm pretty sure it did originally. So, but it's so true. Like we've talked, I think on the last podcast, we were talking about comparisonitis, and this is where a lot of people, oh, she's doing that, I should be doing that. So then you start kind of like working uphill because you're not aligned or in harmony. You're telling yourself you should, and then you start beating yourself up because you're not receiving the right information, or it's not coming through, or quite often we be hard on ourselves, like we need to know everything right now. When we don't, we think we're wrong or give up. This is something that I've learned over the years. I just put it down, like I'm like, okay, what's the next program, or what do I need to do next? And I'm like, I can't get the idea. And then I just, rather than what I did many years ago, which was like, just settle with what you've got, or just keep doing what you're doing, I just go, okay, I'm not ready for it yet. I trust that idea will come to me in time.
Oh, that is such a lesson to learn, because patience, as they say, is a virtue. Well, I'm not very virtuous, so I've had to work on this one, because I know that in the past I've tried to push a lot more. Now, there's a balance here as well, because I'm definitely an action-oriented person. I recognise that there are definite times when you need to hustle, you need to push through, but there's that delicate dance of working out, when do I need to push and when do I need to yield? When do I need to get and when do I need to receive? Like there's just it's hard to find exactly what the space is. It's an individual thing. It's actually something that came up. I had clients away on a retreat. It's about 3 or 4 weeks ago now, and that was one of the questions that we discussed in great detail. Was how do you know when resistance is like a clear sign that I should let this go, versus it just means I need to keep going a bit further, that it's hard, but if it's hard, it's worth it. It's such a dance, isn't it? There's no straight answer.
It is, because then there's a saying like the universe rewards action. So which I've read recently, and then I'm like, that I agree with that, but I also have part of me that disagrees with that, because it's kind of like, what action are you taking? Everything's got grey areas.
It does. But this is interesting. It's having these conversations that opens your mind to consider these things, to actually look at it. I like the idea of taking an issue or taking a challenge or a thought that you have and putting it on the coffee table so that you can walk completely around it and look at it from all angles, because we can get stuck only looking from one angle. So I like to stick it out there so I can walk around, have a good look from every angle and start to make some choices from there. But this
like that.
I've always used that analogy. It felt good for me. But one of the things that self-support, I think another version of it then that we're looking at here, is allowing yourself time and space for consideration. Not saying self-imposed deadlines. I will have this cracked by right now. Like set deadlines are important, but so is flexibility. That's why we're in our own businesses, so that we can actually set our own parameters. So I'm a believer these days in putting it just to the side and then giving myself some space to come back to it. there's something brewing for me at the moment, something that I'm wanting to create for my audience after, my community, after some conversations that I've had, and something that I'm quite excited about, but I'm not ready to give it total form yet. I only moved into this new house 6 days ago.
Yes.
I'm in a closet, for God's sake, surrounded by boxes still. So, and the impatient part of me, my default belief, which is that if you have an idea, you need to do it now. I'm learning to temper that a little bit. And that, to me, is another form of self-support. I used to, and this is definitely an ongoing thing, so I'm not saying, I've solved this now, I am perfect, thou shalt follow my rules. I'm becoming more accustomed to allowing things rather than, like, it's got to be done yesterday, preferably.
Yeah, that's right.
Before lunch, yesterday, actually. So I will allow myself to look at this idea in a couple of weeks when I have some more space around it. And to me, that's self-support as well.
It is. And it's and you understand that, whereas some people would beat themselves up and start calling them lazy and useless because I'm not doing anything with this idea now.
That L word, the L word, that's definitely one that's in my vocab. And, the mastermind that I'm in, my gorgeous colleagues and the facilitator who leads the mastermind, they do pick me up on it because it is my natural tendency. You were talking before about the neural pathways and it's worn down in the ground. That one, I am lazy if I'm not doing 12 things at once, is a really strong pathway that's been there for a long time. I'm forming a new one, but if you look at the two, one looks like, it's been, the furrow is deep. The other one is just looks like someone's tiptoed through the tulips. It's going to take...
There's a few squashed ones and a few to the side, but it'll get there.
It'll get there eventually.
Absolutely. And look, I have to say, I'm exactly the same. I've created a bit of space and kind of got some new ideas happening, but I am on the tail end of finishing my kinesiology course, which has been going for nearly a year and a half at least. And I'm, at the time of this podcast recording, 28 weeks pregnant. So I've got some pretty, big things happening in my life at the moment, and to start diving into these new ideas that I'd have a new direction, it would mean that I would not be focused on things that are happening right now or other things I need to get done. And this is part of having awareness, because I started going, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. And I'm like, whoa up, girlfriend, just take a deep breath, have a look, make your list of priorities. Let's put these ideas in the space of, this is the direction that I'm headed, and let's just move through what's going on now. Tie that up in a nice little bow. I'm not talking about having the baby, because we all know that there's no bows there. It's just going to be a little bit rocky for a while. Every new mum will has told me, just go with the flow. Just, there's no right or way to do things. But just, if I haven't finished this course, to invest time and energy into other things, when it just creates a feeling of scatteredness in the mind and disconnect, because we then fill up our mind with not so much distractions, because they're things we need to get done, but pretty much if we do fill up our mind with a whole bunch of stuff that we could be just putting, like you said, over to the side for now, then we're not focused on what we're doing at the moment.
That's the cluttering. That's the cluttering part that we've touched on. So if you circle that around, it's that awareness piece. It's the awareness piece. Everything starts with awareness.
Awareness. And the clutter creates procrastination, because then you pulled in 20 different directions and then you stop. When you're pulled in 20 different directions, where are you going? Nowhere.
Nowhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Nowhere. Well, it's and if you're looking at this, let's just take another angle here for a moment, purely from the business side. When it comes to streamlining, I often talk about the need for a marketing megaphone and then 2 or 3 support acts. And by that I mean, where do you put your attention in terms of the way that you're going to promote and talk about your business and invite people towards you? If you try and do Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and podcasts and Facebook Lives and newsletters and speaking and that you just it's exhausting thinking about it. So if you give yourself permission, if you're aware what it is that you enjoy doing. Like, I'm a bit of a talker, as you've recognised. I love having these sort of conversations and sharing them. So it's natural that a podcast for me gets priority. But in the last couple of weeks, again, because of the move, I have not published 2 episodes. And a part of me go back to old school. Oh my God, you're so lazy. You've got podcasts sitting there. All you've got to do is record the intro, get it to your VA and write the page. Oh, and do this and this. You should just be able to do that as well. Like, do it between the hours of 11 and 12 after you've got to, before you go to bed. The old me would be beating the hell out of myself. Mm-hmm. But what I've recognized is that the sky has not fallen on my head because I have chosen to flex a deadline. So it's about prioritization, as you're saying, and letting go of the cluttering. So from a marketing perspective, if you find yourself scattered and cluttered, let go of some stuff. Focus on the areas where you feel most comfortable, that you enjoy, and that where you know your type of clients are likely to be a watering hole for them. And if you need to look at the self-imposed deadlines that you've created, recognize that some of them can be softened, and that's okay. I think that's one of the most important parts of being in the next chapter, is that you recognize that you have the reins. They're in your hands.
Yes.
And you can choose the self-talk that will support you, or you can choose to call yourself lazy and useless. Which one's going to be better in the long term?
That's it. And you might call yourself lazy and useless once, and then get an awareness about it. But there's a difference between saying it once and going, hey, whoa up, girlfriend.
Yeah,
you're just focusing on other things. That's right. Yeah. Or calling yourself lazy and useless 100 times.
Yeah, there's a world of difference between them. So, the steps that we've talked about today, first of all, let's start just to recap them for our lovely listeners as we're coming full circle in the closet, is that we start with that awareness. We have to be aware of what it is that we're saying to ourselves and become aware of how habitual this is. And it's not just the one-off comments, it's capturing them and recognizing that perhaps this isn't as supportive as it can be, that we can be harder on ourselves than anybody else. And that doesn't make sense because we have to live with ourselves all the time. So
yes.
it would make sense that for us to be our chief advocates, our chief supporters, that's the self-love, the self-compassion. These are important parts here. When we're feeling good, we are much more likely to go out into the world and do good. So awareness. And then that leads to the motivation, when we can see the impact that what we're doing has on us, our businesses, our lives, then we get motivated to accept what's been happening and make the decision to change. I loved your switch. Okay, the actual physical. There it is, switch. And then to choose an empowering thought or statement rather than a disempowering one. And now, how did you describe it? It was like the setting the new neural pathway.
That was like so last year. That was like so beginning of the podcast. I'm thinking it was creating a new path, like when you're walking through a forest. It's like just switching to a different path. Literally, you could be switching. You could, if you're a visual person, creating a visual, and this path could actually have a sign on it that says Larissa the lazy loser, and then this which I am a lazy loser when it comes to things that aren't high in my values. I'm so happy to admit, because I'm happy to be lazy and cleaning the kitchen floor. That's fine. But when it comes to my purpose and why and my goal, I want to switch to the path that says Larissa, the vessel for ideas and
visual for vision
and teaching and all that kind of stuff. So literally switching, and perhaps even seeing it in your mind, because you are literally creating a new neural pathway in your mind every time you switch and think the new thought or say the new phrase. But see it, say it, see it, feel it. Like, don't just give it lip service. Like, it needs to be ingrained in all different parts of the sensory system.
I love that. Say it, see it, feel it,
Yeah.
and then do it. As you were talking, I was imagining that, when I start calling myself lazy, or when I start, the negative talk that can come in, I'm actually seeing a great big stop sign. Stop, hearing the beep.
Down. Yes.
Yeah. And then physically turning to the left and looking, and in my mind's eye, looking down a new path. And using those new words. So that's the switch, and that's the using the affirmation. And the
next part, or like what you said, is being realistic.
Oh, yeah.
But let it be realistic by, like what we said, was saying, where am I doing this now? Like, where am I motivated? Where am I taking action? Where am I having inspired ideas? Because
Future feel, yeah, when we can. So acknowledging the good, not just noticing the not so good, but acknowledging the good, because that's where we get our future fuel from. We talked, some friends and I were talking about, and I'm sure I've mentioned it sometime on the podcast, about doing a gratitude list and how important that is as a part, I believe, as a part of what I call the bookends of the day. Start with meditation and end with gratitude. But we've slotted into that gratitude list of actually, what am I proud of today? What did I do well today? You actually pat yourself on the back. I think that part's really important. That helps. That's another form of self-support, or self-congratulations. Is acknowledgement. Yeah, it's acknowledging that we're doing a pretty damn good job.
And interestingly enough, I balanced my list. What did I forget today? What could I have done better today?
Well, that's a long list for me some days.
yeah. But let it be the same size as the other list, because you don't want to go into disempowering feelings. But to me, that it eliminates the arrogance out of it.
That's good.
I'm up myself, because it keeps me grounded and in the middle road. I'm not on the high road. I'm not on the low road, but I'm in the middle road.
I'm balanced. I'm in center. Yeah.
Yes, I'm a human. There's stuff that I've forgotten, perhaps someone I didn't thank, someone that I didn't ring back, like just thought of someone now. I was going to message and confirm an appointment, which I've forgotten to do. But just write it down, and you get used to just writing simple things down, and they just become platforms of growth. They don't become reasons we can beat ourselves up more. Oh, you idiot, you forgot this. But it just keeps you grounded and centered and in harmony, in that middle road.
I love that. Create a platform for growth. I'm writing that one down. Can you hear the scratching?
I can hear this.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's I love having these conversations, and I know that everyone who's listening will pull out a gem. That's my philosophy with sharing these conversations with the Next Chapter Women, is that there'll be something in here that sparks an idea, which leads to an action, which creates change. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking to be catalysts for change, so that women can really reach their full potential in their next chapters, however that looks for them.
And you only.
Yep. Only for that person.
Yeah.
Yep, I know. Not for me. I know what you mean.
You get what I mean. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
Well, my darling, as we come to a close here, is there any last thoughts that you want to share, or have we done pretty well? Have we covered this topic well?
I'm sure there's things that we could have, like usual, when we get off these conversations that are just evolve organically. I get off and we say goodbye, and I think of about 100 things on top of,
and that's why we're committed to them each month, and who knows what other topics will be explored. Thank you so much, my darling, for sharing your time again today.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for creating the platform, and for sharing, and also the platform for other people to connect and learn and grow and become more of who they really know they can be. So awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great feeling. And thank you for tuning in and listening again today. I know you have a busy life, you have a busy schedule, but you know that there is more there for you. And so, as I mentioned, if there is a gem in here, in this conversation, or in any of the conversations that you hear as a part of the Next Chapter community, then I'd be delighted to find out what you have decided to do with that gem. How are you tending it? What actions are you going to take? How are things changing for you? Because what's going to unfurl for you in your next chapter is beyond what you can even imagine right now. I'd love to meet you again in a few years and find out what's been happening. So look, if you'd like to take a moment to give some feedback, you can do that through my website under angelaraspas.com/podcasts. There is a drop-down navigation there where you can leave a quick review. I'd love it if you did. It gives me the feedback that gives me a bit of fuel, but it also allows this podcast to become more visible so more women in their next chapters can tap into the wisdom and experience of my guests who've always got something fantastic to share. So again, thank you so much for your energy. This is Angela Raspas saying I'll talk to you again very soon. Take care. Thanks for listening to the Your Next Chapter podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please let me know. Pop over to angelaraspas.com to subscribe to the show and leave a review. And whilst you're there, you can also enjoy valuable free resources, including show notes and downloads, along with the Next Chapter community, where you can connect with other wholehearted women on the same journey as you. We'd love to welcome and support you as your next chapter unfolds. See you next time.